We could jump a deer and we could run him to Panama City, or we could run him to Mariana. It doesn't matter. Or to the head of the bay. We could run him just as far as we had dogs.
Where did y'all hunt a lot back then?
We hunted from right here, let's see, it's 20 something miles to Callaway and about 15 miles to the head of the bay. Just anywhere we wanted to hunt around here, and all the way to Highway 20 up yonder. We run it off with the dogs.
Okay. And, you know, growing up, there's a different culture back then with dog hunting.
Oh yeah.
You didn't get as much of, you know, the flack that a lot of the dog hunters get, or the taboo against it, you know, and it's all about that family heritage and passing it down for us and our hunting group. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, like I say, we just growed up in it, you know. Everybody hunted, well, not everybody, but 4 or 5 families all hunted, you know, and didn't nobody care. I mean, we hunted on cross private property, you know. We knowed whose property was what, but they didn't care, you know. They just run the dogs through there and kill the deer or whatever. But nowadays, you know, with all the property like it is, you can't turn a dog loose without you got to have some kind of way of stopping him, you know. All that changed, so that's why I got out of the dog hunting. That was too aggravating.
Now, when you were at your peak of dog hunting, how old do you think you were?
At my peak? Probably, I peaked about 30 years, about from my late teens right on into my 50s.
Right.
And then we went to losing property when I was in my 50s. So.
And how many head of dogs did you used to run and keep?
Well, we started out with hounds, you know, like black and tans and stuff like that. And I had a pretty pack of blue tick and tree and walkers. Now, they was a good little pack. And then I got into the beagle walkers. That was my favorite. A cross between a beagle and a walker. But I had a pack of 8 just regular beagles at one time, and they was about as good as you could ask for. I killed a minion deer head of that little pack of beagles. But we had some good times. I guess we still got the record on the number of shots fired and not get the deer. But your daddy and all of them was in on that. And I think we wound up shooting 52 times and run out of dogs. and didn't have no more dogs to put on.
Yeah, that had to be a good record.
Oh yeah, well, we was running and shooting that day.
Yeah.
That was about 10 miles up in behind the house.
Talk about that day. Talk about that race.
Well, somebody told me. I remember it one way, but somebody else remembered it another way. So I don't want to get into that.
Yeah. Well, talk about one that you can remember well that sticks out. You know, that you might think of from time to time.
Well, your Uncle Steve had an old dog called Batman. And I had hunted with him enough and with Steve and them that I knowed he had 2 different barks. He had a deer bark and he had a coyote bark. And we were over yonder across the creek. Everybody was getting ready to go home. But old Batman was in a head over there, old swamp. But he was doing that deer bark. Slowly trailing, doing that deer bark. So I went in there on a little dead end road I knowed where it was and got up on the dog box, just sat there. Everybody wanting, let's go. I knowed old Batman would come through for us in a little while, and he did. He jumped him and come out there, I think it was an 8-point. And I killed him. He was 200 or 300 yards out there headed to the power lines. I wasn't able to hardly go out there and get him, but Bill and your Uncle Steve, they had a 4-wheeler over there. So they said they'd drive the power line down there and get him for me. I wouldn't even have to go out there. I said, okay, I'll just spot y'all. And they turned that 4-wheeler over 3 or 4 times in mud holes trying to get down there. I'd see them coming and all of a sudden water would splash 20 feet high. They'd get up and they'd go again. They finally got him, and I believe I could have went out there and got him faster, you know. But they were doing me a favor, I reckon. Now that was a good one. But the one we shot 52 times now, if I remember it like I remember it, I jumped him up there off of Road 11. And he come down side the timber, and when I looked at him through the scope, all I could see was sunlight. The sun had come up over the trees, and it was blinding me. And I didn't get a shot at him. But then I made it back to the truck. They had started shooting over on the other side of the creek. And the time I got back around there to them, all the shooting and the dogs were just about over. They had shot all the time. But that was a good one. Let's see, let's think about another good one. Oh yeah, I jumped another big one up there on the dead end of the Willie Goodman. And your grandpa and your daddy and your Uncle Steve was going up the White Post Road out there off of 22. And they met him head on. And he was a good one. And they shot, and they shot. He was running right down the road, but they didn't ever get him. I think we got one later that day, but not that one. And let's see.
Yeah, it's not necessarily about, killing.
Oh, no.
Talk a little bit about that, and I feel like if there were more people out there trying to spread this family heritage or having things that they do like this,
yeah,
you'd raise better kids. And
oh yeah, none of us turn out bad doing all that hunting and stuff, and fishing, but I hate to see that all the younger generation won't never know nothing about the way we growed up hunting. You know what I'm saying? That's bad. But they don't want you on their property no more, so it's kind of hard.
Yeah, but it's dying off too, not just because of the private property thing, but it's just less and less people are doing it.
Oh yeah, see
which is harder.
Yep, but that's just like the squirrel hunting. All my life, the Friday before squirrel season, you couldn't stir the people with a stick in Weewaw. Boat motors, camping gears, and all the boat landings was packed. Everybody camping out on the river just to shoot them squirrels. And now, you can't even tell it's squirrel season. You might see a boat, but he's probably going fishing. So yeah. It's just a sign of times. All the older ones are dead and gone, and they don't do it no more. So.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, old timers that have gone, talk about some of the people you used to hunt with when you were a kid.
Well, the first old feller that got us into it, I think, was Mr. Arthur Danley. He was an old gentleman that lived over in Callaway, and he told Mama that he was going to teach us how to hunt and how to skin a deer, and where we could survive, and he pretty much did. But back then, when we started, there wasn't radios, CB radios. You know what I mean? Everybody get down there at the store and gas up, and they'd mention which way they was going and where they was going to track. And then they had a meeting up place at daylight. They'd discuss who had the best track and which way we'd go, and we'd go from there. But sometimes you might not see the rest of the bunch all day long, it's according to where the dogs went. You'd get lost out there. The way we used to do it, if you were running a deer or either looking for dogs, when you got to an intersection, you'd draw an arrow and put your initials. That meant you was going that way. You know what I'm saying? That way, if anybody had to come look for you, if you got stuck or whatever, they'd know about which way to go look for you. So, and that's the way we done it. So we didn't have radios. We couldn't stay in contact.
I like that. Talk some more about those old times.
That was good old times, but like I said, I was riding with Mr. Danley and his youngest boy, George. George was 10 or 12 years older than me. But we jumped deer. We didn't know what it was, but we took off up the county line. And I remembered when we went down through there was a big drain ditch that run off the road there. So Mr. Danley, he parked a couple 100 yards up there. And I jumped off the truck and run back down there to that ditch just so I could look down the ditch. And they was 2 humongous bucks we was running. And we didn't even know till I seen them cross that ditch. And I didn't get a shot at them. I think I only had a 410 back then. Dog Daddy let me use. But we got ahead of him down there, on down there closer to. That's going to interfere with you right there.
No.
But get him out of here. But anyway, we didn't see but just one of them 2 when we got ahead of him down there. And I was going to shoot. He was standing out there about 50 yards. Mr. Danley wouldn't let me shoot. He said no, he wanted George to shoot it with a 30-30. And George shot and shot and shot. And finally, the old deer turned around and run off. He never cut a hair. But that was a good day. And then me and R.L., that's the oldest brother, and your Uncle Frank. We was in Daddy's old station wagon out there hunting with the Williams boys. And we'd went off up, there was an old Y in the road that went off up. We took the right-hand prong. Seemed like we turned out up there on the deer and jumped him and he took off. Well, we come flying back down that road to that Y. And when we got top of the hill, all them Williams boys was lined up right there. And Uncle Frank hit the brake on that old station wagon and it went to the floor. There weren't no brakes. But there was just enough room between 2 of their vehicles. He put her right between them and run it off in that creek. Like to have a bad wreck, but we did. Yeah. We had some good times with them old wore out vehicles.
Yeah, the woods over here, I mean, it gets pretty swampy.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And hunting the river really wasn't. Not a lot of people did it back.
No.
You couldn't do it.
Yeah. Well, that was back a long time ago before the radios and all that stuff. It was hard to keep up, and there wasn't no.
What was the first? I guess it might be the radio was the first big technology.
Oh yeah.
Saw,
Yes, sir. Yeah, the CB. But they was the old tube type. And you couldn't leave them on with your truck switched off because they'd kill your batteries. They had tubes in them. So you had to keep it running. But that made a lot of difference right there, so you could try to keep up with people, and keep up with the dogs. Cause if somebody could hear them way over yonder, they'd tell you, and then you could go that way, That was the big technology. But the problem with the swamp, river swamp, every time I ever went over there, and we turned loose, they'd go out of here, and you didn't know where they went, and you'd be all day waiting and hoping, and if they was on the other side, they'd gone to the national forest. The best dog I ever had in my life, I turned out on this side of the river, and she went in there and jumped. The whole pack did. And we ain't heard another word all day till just about dark. And we heard them jump again down the river, but she wasn't in the pack. And I never saw her again, so I don't know what happened to her. I don't know if somebody picked her up or.
Which having tracking collars these days.
Oh yeah, see, I'd have known where she went. Now, she could have fell in one of those old cypress stump holes in there. I don't know what happened to her, but she was a good one. She was a walker, but she was a little dog, about like a beagle walker. She was a good one, as good as I ever had.
What does the carrying on the hunting heritage necessarily mean to you, and how important is it to see it go?
I love it, and I'd love to teach young'uns. I don't have a young'un or a grand young'un that's interested. I would love to take them, as long as back when we was trying to hunt down at Saul's Creek, but like I said, the grandyoungins ain't interested no more, and I'm just down to hunting up there at Eddie's mama's old place up there, behind the farm. But it ain't much hunting to me to sit there all day in a shooting house.
Talk a little bit about when we used to travel, and go to like Alabama and those leases.
Well, now I enjoyed that when I hunted up there in Alabama with them boys, but then again, all that's private property. And me with a Florida tag, I was not invited, you know what I mean, on most of the property. I could hunt the county roads, but it was illegal to get caught on the county road with a loaded gun. So there again, I was in a bind there because I couldn't get off the road like all them boys that I was hunting with from Alabama. They could go in them pastures, and but I couldn't. I went in one time just to get off the county road, and the old fella come up there and caught me, and he chastised me pretty bad. But it was fun.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to see a bigger buck in front of the dog.
Ooh, good gracious, I ain't never seen so many bucks. I had your daddy in the truck with me one morning, and all them Alabama boys, they done had all the good spots. But I know there was an old turnoff right there by a church. We could get off the highway. So we pulled in there, and it was frosty. It was a cutover. As soon as we pulled in there, I could see a buck standing down yonder. His horn sticking up. And I stopped the truck and switched it off. I told your daddy, I said, don't open the door, just kind of prop out on the window right there and see if you can kill him. I think he opened the door and got in the crack, and he shot. And he shot. And I couldn't figure why he couldn't hit him. And but anyway, that run on off. Them other boys went shooting at him. So I went to getting out of the truck, turned around and looked back across the highway, and there was a sure enough one standing over there. And I got the gun out and got one shot off at him before he disappeared. And then I told them what happened. They killed that little one. They wouldn't come over there and let's run that big one because it was too close to time for the church to take in. I said, look, throw the dogs out there. We won't be him when the church takes in. You know what I mean? They'll be gone. But they wouldn't do it, and he was a wall hanger.
Yeah.
But that's the way it was, hunting, with other people in another territory. So.
Yeah.
But it was fun. And everywhere I turned around up there, seemed like I was seeing a big buck down across one of them peanut fields or something, There sure was some deers up there.
Trying to think of one more topic that we could hit. I've gotten so much good stuff. Is exactly what I needed.
On this?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There's a huge audience out there for the dog hunting stuff. Think about like yourself. Social media is not a place for people like you and my dad.
Oh no.
I mean, there are a few creators out there that are creating worthwhile stuff that they want to watch, but I figured I could hit two birds with one stone. Hit that area not only for my dad, but for people like you, and also help to try to protect these stories about a time that we won't ever see again. And it's nothing, the world's changed.
Oh yeah.
Eventually everybody's gonna have to let go of dog hunting.
Oh yeah.
It's inevitable, but what we can do is we can document these times.
Yeah. And
be able to hold on to them.
Yeah, cause like I said, I don't have a young'un or a grandyoung'un that was ever interested, so they ain't gonna know these stories that I got in my head, And I got bunches of them, but I need 2 or 3 more that hunted a little bit so we can keep this thing going.
No, this right here is gonna be. This is gonna serve to kind of ease other people's minds into doing it.
Oh, okay.
And we'll do it some more. I'll get you sat down with Uncle Steve, Mitch.
You need to, yeah.
And really do this right. But I saw an opening and went ahead for it. But I think that's pretty good. I think we got enough.
Okay.
But we'll close with anything that you might have on your chest or that you feel, needs to be said.
About the dog hunt?
Yeah.
No, it's just a change of times. I made up my mind to change with it. That's why I got rid of my last dogs and just give it up. So I didn't have no kids or grandkids to pass it on to. And like I said, Steve and Trav and Han, Bill, they all give it up. They give it up way ahead of me, and I said, well, I ain't gonna keep paying them high prices just to try to find somewhere to run my dogs,
Yeah.
I wanted to go hunt down on the river with traveling him, but I done got to that point with his leg now. I can't jump in and out of a boat. I failed twice this summer getting in the boat, so I know I can't jump out there on the sandbar and take off out through the swamp. So.
Yeah, if there's one thing that I've learned from working with the duck hunters is bringing in the guys as they're aging is balance.
Oh yeah, yes sir. Seeing my balance, yeah, I'm like that. So,
yeah.
But I got that artificial knee and it don't function like it's supposed to. So, like I said, I failed twice just trying to get in the boat. So.
Yeah, it's not worth it.
No,
you like Dad, anybody around here knows somebody that's lost their life to the river.
Oh yeah, yes sir. I done drugged one up myself, and a very good friend that worked in my crew drowned. You got to be careful, and you got to wear them life jackets down there. So.
Got to wear kill switches. And
yeah.
Respect
Oh yeah.
River.